And we are live. Greetings and welcome to Rice Crypto, Rice TVX, and I Love Crypto, Crypto Blood. Give that fly-by-fly if you can hear loud and clear. Take an opportunity to smash that like button. Show some love. We are streaming on both of our YouTube channels, both of our X accounts, my Rumble account. We are going to be sharing a portion of the Great Taking documentary, giving our thoughts, reactions. This is a must-see documentary. We encourage you to check it out in its entirety, as well as download the book that is available for free. We're going to go ahead and get things started. Again, smash that like button. And before we begin, as always, a few quick messages from the sponsors of Rice Crypto. Shout out to Monarch Wallet, where you control your private key. Control and own your private key with Monarch Wallet, as well as Pre-Search, the decentralized search engine. You can find information in my video descriptions, as well as Fair Desk for the Crypto Blood side. Information is in his video description. Holla.
This episode is brought to you by Fair Desk, a crypto derivatives trading platform founded by 6 former Binance execs and 3 former Morgan Stanley architects. Fair Desk is a company focused on building a platform that enables traders to profit from both rising and falling markets. Sign up today and CB will credit you up to $600 in trading funds. For more information, visit fairdesk.com, link in the description below.
All right, here we go, man. Thank you for tuning in for today's live stream. Again, we are streaming on both of our YouTube channels, our X account. Right. I am streaming on my Rumble, and we have links for each other's socials in each other's video description. How's it going, CB?
Hey, man, back-to-back live streams. Let's go, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, I was going to originally do 4 o'clock, man, but I gave that 5-minute cushion because you're always doing 5 after the hour, and you did that 3:05 live stream, so.
Yeah, I like to offset it a little bit, you know?
Right on, right on. Well, what I will do real quick screen share, and shout out to StreamYard for the kick-ass video backgrounds that we can utilize. Nice. Yeah, I want to see how the rendering process takes place with having this graphic, but I think it looks cool, especially for what we're going to be talking about today. You guys can check out and follow my brother from another mother at CryptoBlood _ on the X. I also have his YouTube channel down below. You can follow me over on the X at Rice TVX, as well as my YouTube channel, Rice Crypto, part of the Rice TVX syndicate. And what we're going to be talking about today is linked down below in the video description. Here is the greattaking.com website. You can actually watch the documentaries here, follow on Twitter and Facebook, and you can download the book. If you click on download the book, it's going to take you right here. You are invited to read or download The Great Taking, a book written about the scheme of central banks to subjugate humanity by taking all securities, bank deposits, and property financed with debt. You can download. There's a PDF. I've downloaded it. I encourage you to as well. The cool thing about it is the book itself, I think, is like a 20-page prologue, and then it's the actual book itself looks like it is about 64 pages. So it's not a hard read. I plan on reading it over the weekend and encourage you to do the same. I will have a link down below for the Great Takings YouTube channel, where you can find the documentary, which we're going to be talking about today. Before we do that, Blood, what are your thoughts, man? I sent you a link for this thing a couple days ago.
Yeah.
You sent me a link for an interview that we're going to probably cover as well about the LIBOR rates and a bunch of scandals. I had to dissect that a little bit more and take some notes, but this
Yeah, maybe we'll do a react. Well, maybe not so much a reaction video to that interview, but talk about it in another stream, the LIBOR SOFR thing, because it came up in a live stream of ours about a week ago.
What
was it? When we talked about LIBOR.
Yeah, it was about a week or so ago, a week and a half.
And so when I saw the interview, I'm like, oh man, me and Rice were just talking about this.
Yeah, nah, that dude.
And people went to jail, bro. They took people. I didn't know this part. They put the wrong people in jail.
The scapegoat situation, man. It happens a lot. Real quick, I do want to shout out. We have R.A. Daniel in the house. We have Johnny B. Crypto. It looks like we have some dude named I Love Crypto Blood also in the house. Edward, thanks for joining. We need 100 likes on each of our channels. So if you haven't smashed that like button, take an opportunity. And like Blood likes to say, smack them booties, smack them booties.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and show up the rest here. We have David, Mr. Brumbelows in the house. T-Will, line man for hire. What's going on? Salute to you. D. Fuentes, 420. Such a great time. It's about 5 minutes away. Peggy Williams, good seeing you. We try to bring the comedy. We try to entertain because this topic is serious, man. What do you think about what you watched with this documentary?
I saw someone comment on the video and they said, I quote, paraphrasing, I thought I was a woke person, but this really took it to another level. And that kind of sums it up for me as well. Like we both are very aware of the monetary system, how it works, how it doesn't work, and all the ins and outs. We understand that, right? But this took it to another. It did take it a notch higher. It gave me a little bit more understanding and knowledge about the whole situation, man. I didn't know, and we'll get into it.
It's slick how it was done.
Yeah, I didn't know the Federal Reserve could just create LLCs.
Now, I think
fund them.
Where I put us. Go ahead. Sorry.
I remember the Maiden Lane. I remember that name back in 2008. They talked about this Maiden Lane LLC, and that company was taking on some of the bad debt from the Wall Street. I remember that. And so when he talked about it in the documentary, I'm just like, oh shit! It just put everything, connected the dots, man. And I just didn't know. I didn't know.
Well, and if people could do that, if some of it goes above people's heads, what I would really suggest is, as a precursor, if you haven't seen the movie The Big Short, that is a really good way of kind of getting a really good foundational for understanding what's taken place even further than what we've learned from that 2007-2008 global financial crisis, the GFC. So, this guy did an interview with Daniel Camboni on ITM Trading.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to watch that one.
He seems like he's intelligent. The first 15 minutes of the documentary is kind of setting up who he is, which makes sense. Why he goes, it's not egotistical. It's just to get a really good understanding of how this guy was able to come about this information. It's not like just some random thing.
Right, and build some credibility.
To warn people.
Most of us don't know who David Webb is.
No clue.
Is he any relation to Whitney Webb? I mean, I'm just.
I don't think so.
There's a simulation again, fucking with us.
Could be. What I will say is Danielle Camboni tried to steer the interview and keep it like on point, but he likes to elaborate on things. So, and I think she was a little frustrated with that. As an interviewer, I could kind of read that. Other people may not have seen it, and I may be completely wrong with my analysis of
Camboni. She's hot, man. I don't even like white girls. She's around the clock.
Yeah, well, she's Italian, and I don't know if she's just straight Italian or if it's Hispanic as well. So I don't know if I would just. She's in the light brown category, maybe.
Maybe. Hey, round of applause. Right.
She's not white like me. Look how white I am compared to this black stuff.
I was about to say, but you got a black ass sweater on. Can't even see it.
You can't even see it, man. It's so cool. It's like this. It's like a hoodie sweater.
Yeah, that's sweet.
It's pretty wicked, man. You can wear it all kinds of different ways. This is a gift, and I wasn't sure what I was going to think about it, but I do love thumb holes too. Those are awesome.
Pause.
Well, shout out thumb holes. So let's go ahead and get into this, man. And what I wanted to do, what I had chosen and you agreed with, is that instead of playing the entire documentary, which I believe is like an hour and 10 minutes long, We are going to be sharing about 30 minutes of probably the most pertinent information. But I definitely encourage you to check out the entire documentary. And I also encourage you to download and read the book. I would encourage you to download the book because it's hosted by GoDaddy. And with the information, it could be easily taken down. So I would encourage people to go to thegreattaking.com and download the book. So let me go ahead and get the screen share pulled up. Before the great taking of the great taking. I was thinking about calling this the great reaction to the great taking. Because that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a great reaction.
Right, exactly.
I just got to make sure I got audio shared, and it looks like we got everything good to go. And I'm going to go ahead and make this should I full screen or is this good?
Yeah, let's full screen.
All right. Full screen. Okay, so I'm at 21 minutes 06. Let me know if you can hear it real quick. I want to play a second and pause.
And who knows what else was created.
Turn it up a little bit. Turn your volume up. Yep.
Told about. So in 2000.
Is that good?
Yep.
2008, I noticed the first failure of a broker dealer. So I was expecting there to be a lot of insolvencies, and I was paying attention. And the thing that shocked me was that the client accounts in this broker dealer were encumbered in the bankruptcy estate of the broker. That never could have happened before.
Tell me when you want me to pause it.
Securities, they were personal property. And if the broker failed, you would say, I'm sorry, you're out of business. Here's where you can transfer my assets. That did not happen in this case. So I started digging into what could possibly have changed. And this was as serious as a heart attack, given that we were going into this meltdown at that time. That's when I discovered it had been done through changes to the Uniform Commercial Code in the United States.
Hold on.
Yeah. And
when I heard the Uniform Commercial Code, I thought about you.
Thank you. Well,
I thought about you.
I thought about you thinking. I thought about you thinking about me. I really did, because the law stuff goes right up my alley. And this is another thing that makes me think about running for political office on a state level. But go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, like, man, this all plays into your theory about how the world, or at least the United States, but definitely I think you broaden it out, the actual whole e-commerce of the world, the global e-commerce runs on some type of basis of this uniform commerce code. So
this is all this is. Like, it's trying to make commerce the same. It's trying to make commerce the same everywhere. And that's like back in the old days, maritime law, admiralty law, the law of the sea. It was the same everywhere. Whereas once you got on land, there was what they called common law that was common to the people of that area. And it's, things that most people would know. It's not like statutes and codes that's meant to create more commerce, because that's all a fine and thing like that do. Tickets, it's all about commerce for the bank, which is the judge. But the Uniform Commercial Code goes into a lot of different things. But what it's trying to do is change laws on a basis that in the United States, we have 50 different states, and every state has its own laws. The Uniform Commercial Code is trying to make the laws the same in all states. Now, it doesn't happen to work all the time. Now, I don't know if it was me and you that talked about this, Blood, but this was brought up recently when there were some laws trying to be passed to try to redefine money to exclude Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, but to include CBDCs, digital fiat, digital dollars, etc., through the UCC. Because as he'll explain through this, the UCC happens on a state level and it's quiet. So it doesn't raise as much of attention as doing it on a federal level. And it takes time, but that's what these guys, they play the long game.
Yep.
So the volume is good though.
Yeah, volume's good.
Okay, I'm going to turn up my headset volume to make sure I can hear it good. And we're going to continue from now.
This had been done in all 50 states, so it was something that could be done very quietly over a long period of time and did not have to be done at the federal level, didn't draw attention. What they did was to create a new legal construct of a security entitlement. Now, prior to this, as I said, securities for 400 years were personal property. This concept of a security entitlement severed that. That's its purpose. So what people then have, and institutions and pension funds, even sophisticated investors, all they have is an entitlement. It's a claim. It's a contractual claim. which is very weak in the event of insolvency. So it's an appearance of ownership. It's sometimes referred to as beneficial ownership.
Security entitlement.
Yeah, and this is very alarming because what I started thinking about, and I don't know about you, Blood, is one of the first things that came to mind for me was the conditioning of you will own nothing and be happy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because, you know, we're thinking about how will we get to a point where people will be renting everything they need and things to that effect, not owning anything. And it could get very well be because of something like this, because the securities are what underlies all the major and majority assets.
Yeah, so this whole security entitlement for, but like you said, it only means that you have a claim on that said asset, an appearance of ownership, but you really don't own it. And so, you know, this brings me, the first thing I thought of, Rice, was cryptocurrencies.
Okay.
It's the first thing I thought of, because that is the, like, literally would be the only thing that you could say you hold claim to for sure is some Bitcoin and some other, you know, other cryptocurrencies that you self-custody.
Yeah, but then they're trying to change the laws where you can't self-custody, and there's a lot of things, man. It's time to be time to be a rebel. Have you seen this movie Margin Call?
No, I think I have. Yeah,
okay, I haven't, so I wanted to take note of it. Johnny December, thanks. Everybody says audio is good. Appreciate that.
Yeah,
Inzmo,
but I think
Enzo Hunter.
It goes back to Bitcoin being at $1 million, and I can see Bitcoin at $1 million, but in a situation, in a climate, where he's describing it, of total collapse. So what does it really mean?
Well, it's the same thing as what Whitney Webb said. You know, if
David Webb's sister,
David Webb's, I wouldn't say sister. They don't seem that close in age. Maybe uncle and niece. Second cousins.
We're just throwing shit out there like
second cousins. And
get the rumor mill going.
I'm putting a copy of the video link, this video, and let me go ahead and get a copy of the website. But I have them linked in the video description. Do you have the website and video in your video description, bud?
I do. I have the I have the video, not the website, but the video is there.
And I think you can get to from the website, thegreattaking.com. I think you can go ahead and get to the videos too. Okay. Mr. Secular, I blame the Yoda top Rice is wearing. We have our wisdom side on. Yeah, my Yoda top. That is kind of a good way of putting it.
Oh man.
Before my butthole.
So I mean, it just, you know, that's what I thought of, Rice. You know, I thought of assets like cryptocurrencies. And I can see a scenario where Bitcoin does go to $1 million or more, and a lot of these other currencies go to $1 million, you know, explode. But what environment are we in? We're not in a favorable, like, you don't want to be in this environment.
Right. Yeah. You don't want to be.
Bitcoin is at $1 million.
You don't even want to deal with the situation where we have, because what you're saying is that basically we would have hyperinflation in the fiat monetary system, which means the majority of the people would be suffering.
Majority of the people will be suffering,
and they'd be trying to come rob us for our keys.
Yeah, you'll need to live. Literally, I was talking to someone about this. Shout out to my man, Carlos Diaz.
Shout out to Carlos Diaz. Shout out to Lamborghinis.
I was talking to him, and he said, in the future, everyone will be in prisons. Like, the wealthy will be in prisons.
We already are.
No, what I'm saying is, and it made perfectly good sense. It would get so bad. I saw that.
What'd you say?
So bad. It would get so bad that the wealthy will live inside of prison camps to protect themselves from the rest of.
That's just what is a gated community? Like, instead of a gated community, it would be like a prison community.
Yeah. Round of applause for that.
A self-imposed prison to protect yourselves from the savages.
Yeah.
Savages.
That's $1 million Bitcoin. That's what $1 million Bitcoin looks like.
And that's exactly what John McAfee was betting his dick on.
Literally.
only what you can self-custody. If it's on an exchange, internet-based, it can be turned off at any moment by the government with geofencing. That's the other thing, too, is if we do see the internet get taken down and reboot it, they could potentially put gateways through the ISPs and such that don't allow us access to cryptocurrency and things to that effect. So,
but thank God there are ways through low frequency radio signals to still have
we need
a
to
Bitcoin network.
we need to talk more about things, like put some focus on some things like that in some future shows. But let's go ahead and get back to the point at matter. Again, we're talking about the Great Taking documentary. We played about 2 minutes so far. We've got links down below for everything in the video description. Make sure you guys take an opportunity to smash that like button. Here we go.
Which sounds nice, but what it means is that you receive dividends, you receive a proxy, you are the owner of title. You can, of course, you can buy it and sell it, but you can see in documents that I've found that the legal owner is actually the entity that controls the security with the security interest.
Okay.
They are the legal owners of the property.
This is where some of the things that I kind of like have studied with law, when it comes to legal ownership, that's who actually is the person who has legal ownership. That's what's happened is it's just so people can understand, because it's taking all the securities and putting the ownership in the hands of the controllers.
Custody, yeah, controller, right? And they call them
counterparties, clearinghouses,
CCP. Round of
bullshit.
applause.
Yeah, what was
CCP.
it? Central Counterparty Clearing, or what? Central
Clearing counterparties.
That would be CCCP.
CCP. He said CCP.
Right. Central Clearing. Central Counterparty.
I guess
Central Counterparty.
Clearing is one word.
But then he'll get into it, but there's no counterparty to the counterparty. And the counterparty is pretty much,
that's the problem.
Done.
Yeah, that's the problem.
And that's what you guys are going to find out. And this isn't, so I want to also state, this is not just straight doom and gloom. There is hope, but you need to be aware. You need to educate yourself. You need to know the enemy. You need to know their plan before you can try to refute it. We're going to
go through solutions, both of our, solutions, suggestions for everyone toward the end of the video. So stick around.
Here we go.
Claim. Next, all of the securities are held in pooled form. So you have no specific identification. It used to be that with paper certificates, they were numbered. You had a specific numbered bond or stock share certificate. So now they're fungible bulk, book entry form, pooled. Further, we know, and it is absolutely irrefutable from the Fed's own response to a questionnaire from the EU, that even segregated accounts, even people or institutions that have been told that their securities are segregated, are in the same pool and entitled to only a pro rata share in the event of an insolvency of the custodian. So again, segregation is just an appearance. People are told that. It's an absolute subterfuge. And the shocking thing is that even sophisticated institutional investors do not understand this, or they don't want to know it. Further, even if outright fraud is committed by the custodian, that does not obviate the ability of the secured creditors to take the securities from these pools ahead of the people who thought they owned them. Then there was, in 2005, a change to the bankruptcy law in the United States, creating something called safe harbor. Again, that sounds nice, but what safe harbor means is safe harbor for the secured creditors to take the client assets and to make that absolutely certain that even in the event of fraud, they will take the client assets. So prior to this change in bankruptcy law, there is something called fraudulent transfer, fraudulent conveyance. And the bankruptcy trustee, had a duty to claw back any assets that had been fraudulently transferred. So this change was made in 2005. And then with the failure of Lehman Brothers, this was cemented in case law. And we can see the judgment by the bankruptcy court related to this. What happened?
So when I heard that part, Blood, it made me think, because I've questioned, why would they let Lehman Brothers fail when they've bailed out other banks?
Well,
there were points now, but why would you have allowed an institution that's been around that long?
Well, the reason why, from what I understand, they let Lehman fail because Lehman disagreed or did not participate in bailing out some company, some bank back in the long-term capital days when LTM went down.
Okay.
You know anything about that?
No, because I started
In
caring about this.
1999.
Yeah, I didn't care about this shit back then.
Yeah, it was like a Russian bank or something that was about to basically implode the entire monetary system. That happened in 99, I think. Long-term capital or something like that.
David, text me that information so you can remind me if you don't mind, please. And again, if you guys are just tuning in, you haven't taken an opportunity to smash that like button, we greatly appreciate it. We're streaming on both of our YouTube channels, so make sure you're subscribed to both of our channels. We have links down below in the video description. Sorry.
Yeah, so it was done. It was kind of get back at Lehman Brothers for that. That was why they let them go.
Well, and in addition, though, it was to test out how this shit was going to work out.
Sure, that too. Yep.
And then he elaborates more about that. So maybe kind of I messed up. Let me take it back to the right spot. There we go.
The judgment by the bankruptcy court related to this. What happened there was that JP Morgan was both the custodian for the client assets and the secured creditor that took the client assets, which prior to 2005, everything that happened there would have been constructively fraudulent. But the bankruptcy judge, this is the Southern District of New York, which is Manhattan, found in favor of JP Morgan, that JP Morgan absolutely was entitled to take the client assets. The only question was whether JP Morgan was an entitled person, basically, to take the client assets. This is an important point because it's not all secured creditors that have this power to take the client assets. It is only the very biggest banks.
Person also, in legal terms, a person is a corporation as well.
Mm-hmm.
The client assets. So they don't want anyone else elbowing in there to take anything. Only they will take them. And in this judgment, the judge asked the question, is JP Morgan a member of the protected class? Used explicitly.
I bet the judge cracked up laughing.
Obviously, as one of the biggest banks.
He's like, are you stupid?
Financial institutions. JP Morgan is.
JP Morgan owns us.
Protected class. To see this in a bankruptcy case law from the court, I think that's pretty strong stuff. It's like that document directly from the Fed provided to the Legal Certainty Group. This is hard to refute. A custodian has the records of who owns what. It's in their books and records, but that's all it is. It is the records. The system has been changed so that the property itself is then transferred up to a higher level and held in pooled form. So you deal with your broker to execute a trade to buy or sell something, and you get a representation of an account that shows you what you have in it. But the assets are not held, even at what you think is your custodian. It's transferred to a higher level. In the U.S., that is the Depository Trust Corp, which holds all securities in the United States.
Now, what do you think about
DTCC.
that? Yeah, and DTCC has something to do with some stablecoin stuff, if I'm not mistaken. They have their hands dipped into the crypto space. But what do you think about what was just said about how the underlying asset collateral has been transferred and everything that people like broker dealers and stockbrokers and everybody else is dealing with is just literally casino chips?
It's so true. And
synthetic.
I read they're synthetic, and when I started going down the rabbit hole back in 08 or after 08, like 010, 12, I started finding out and learning about the DTCC. I didn't even know about them until then. And it's so crazy, bro. All your stocks out there are just literally rehypothecated. They're probably like 4 or 5 times as many shares floating than there really are.
Right. So for every share that exists that a broker has, there may be 5 to 10 different owners of that one said share that all think they're the single owner of it. But
and
then,
so it doesn't
but
matter.
none of them are based off these laws and stuff that have been changed. That people
now we know, right? This documentary is showing us that even the one person that thinks he owns it out of the 10 don't even own it because it's owned by the clearinghouse.
Right. Like the broker says, this is the real one. This is the guy who actually owns the share. Then the guy behind the broker's laughing and be like, no, none of you motherfuckers own these shares. We got it all.
If the shit hits the fan, no one gets the ownership title of that said asset. So that goes for mortgages. That goes for your home. Anything
taking all of it and grouping it together in these pools. dematerialization, turning it into the digital form.
Yep.
There's so much that you definitely need to. I know we're interrupting to give our thoughts and reaction, but definitely watch the documentary in its entirety. It's so important. And I actually
I want to just say
this
part too. I learned this in the documentary. I didn't know the DTCC was started by a former CIA agent. Did you catch that part?
I don't know if I did or didn't. There's so much in this, man.
Man.
There is so much in this. So it's crazy. It's crazy. Interesting. Much appreciated. We appreciate you guys taking the time to tune in as well. Let me go ahead and get back into this. If you guys have any questions, feel free to comment after the video and I'll definitely respond.
Pooled form. So the brokers themselves are low down in the food chain. In Europe, there are central security depositories at the national level that give an appearance of a registry of ownership at the national level. But by law, under something called the Central Security Depository Regulation, CSDR, which was imposed in 2014, by law, these securities are transferred by a mandatory link to an international central securities depository. So they want cross-border mobility of the collateral to occur. So in Sweden, for example, you have a local registry, but then the securities go up to Euroclear Belgium. So they are subject to Belgian law, not Swedish law at that level. And then the collateral is transported to underpin the derivatives complex, which is housed at the central clearing counterparties. The acronym is the CCPs. So this is the purpose.
Here's Blood's favorite CCP.
This central clearing.
Central counterparty clear. That's
we know from
3 C's in a
BIS document that is now over 10 years old that the systems are in place for the movement of this collateral on a global basis nearly instantaneously, especially in a crisis, to be swept to meet the collateral demands of the system, the secured creditors. Also associated with this, we have to understand derivatives used to be bilateral. You knew when you entered into a contract who your counterparty was, and you looked to the credit quality of that counterparty. They were on the other side. In the name of reducing risk, they actually increased risk. They created a monolithic risk because they forced central clearing so that the CCP is the counterparty on all derivatives contracts. The central clearing parties are the counterparties. Now, what does that mean if the central clearing party itself fails? That means there is no counterparty there to honor the derivative contracts for all manner of things, but especially.
That means everybody is up shit's creek without a paddle.
Right.
People that think that they have hedged their downside risk in the collapse. There's no counterparty. And the central clearing parties have been deliberately undercapitalized. So in Europe and the US,
deliberately undercapitalized
by the participants themselves about the possibility of the central clearing parties failing. In the last few years, there have been discussions of this. And if you look at DTC itself, which houses all the securities in the US securities complex and is the central clearing party for most derivatives, they have discussion of how they will start over again when the central clearing party collapses, and explicitly that they will not put more capital behind it, but they have pre-funded the startup of a new central clearing party when one of the existing ones fails. So it's essentially planned, and the entire capital base of depository trust, so essentially the entire U.S. securities complex, is housed there in all derivatives. The entire capital is $3.5 billion. Individual banks have derivative positions the size of the global GDP. So something will happen to trigger this collapse, implosion. I would say the cake is already baked at this time. It's been made to happen because to take interest rates after having kept them at zero for 15 years, which was insane to begin with and did not have to happen, made to happen. And then in essentially a year to take that back to over 5%. And if you're noticing, they're not stopping. The rates are continuing up. I'll go through what that means.
This is where people need to pay some extra close attention. But do you have anything you want to share real quick? Any thoughts?
No, not at this point.
Okay.
I'm going to summarize kind of toward the end. I got some points I'm taking notes.
Word.
For the global financial system. When interest rates were at 5%, if a bond paid $5, to simplify this, let's say it's a perpetuity, which means you don't have to take into account a maturity date. So if it pays $5, it's worth $100. You would pay $100 for that because interest rates are 5%. Now, if interest rates are driven down by the central bank to 1% and the bond still pays $5, now 5 is 1% of $500. So the value of the bond goes up fivefold by dropping interest rates like that. And it was even further because they took it to zero. So this is the source of the bubble, the financial bubble that we've experienced, the everything bubble, as some people call it. And the entire financial system is basically a perpetuity. So everything is based on discounting cash flows. So all real estate, the entire stock market is based on discounting back theoretical future cash flows from companies, as well as bonds. Now, if you do a round trip on this and you take interest rates back from 1% back to over 5%, which is something like what has happened here, you reverse the entire thing and you have an 80% fall in value of everything, everything, all commercial real estate, the stock market, everything. Now imagine what happens to you if you own these things on leverage, if you borrowed to own these things. That's the problem. So the entire run up, the entire bubble was artificial, and the decline will be something like a decimation, where indexes will go to maybe 10% of the peak, because a lot of things will just go out of business. And this is what happened with the whole .com sector when that bubble collapsed. This is what happened in the 1930s. This is what happened to the Nikkei with Japan. All bubbles end this way. And when you step back and look at them, it's like a very sharp mountain peak. It goes into like a needle blow off, and you get a first break and then a second run for the top that fails. And that's where we are now. If you step back and you look at something like the NASDAQ index, the second top is failing now.
That's where we are now, folks.
Hold on, let's stop it right there, because I want to just double check where we are with the NASDAQ right now, because unfortunately he's wrong on that one. I did see that we just took out all-time highs for the S&P, and I think, let me just double check, we hit 52-week high today for the NASDAQ for sure. Let me just go back and look, and lo and behold, he's still right on NASDAQ. I think S&P just took out all-time highs. Let me share my screen really quickly, right, so we can show people what I'm looking at really quick. As you can see here, guys, we are right near the top on the NASDAQ, all-time high. Very close. Not there, but very close. So, I don't know, man.
Well, George Gammon did a pretty good analysis of the entire thing, the great taking, and called something, because, I mean, obviously, I'm not saying every single piece of information in this is 100% correct, but the underlying data, the underlying message is correct.
Yeah, the broader message is
where it's heading to is correct, and maybe how we got there 100%. He's not 100% on, but he's got the big picture, in my opinion.
Yeah.
All right,
we can go forward, and I'll give my 2 satoshis at the end.
Let me get this pulled back up, and let's go ahead and play.
And you get a first break and then a second run for the top that fails. And that's where we are now. If you step back and you look at something like the NASDAQ index, the second top that's failing now, which is understandable given that bond yields are continuing straight up. So when this begins imploding, the insolvencies will increase due to the level of debt. And there will be an automatic call for more collateral that will be transferred into the derivatives complex in these central clearing counterparties. But the central clearing counterparties are themselves likely exposed to the collapse, because I say to people that you may think that you've hedged your exposure to a decline here, but you've done it through the derivatives complex. So the risk is in the derivatives complex. It doesn't disappear. It doesn't go away. It's all there. And this pain will accumulate in the central clearing counterparties, and then they will fail. And they're basically telling us they will fail. And when that happens, the people that thought that they had hedged their exposure, included the most sophisticated institutions and the pension funds, will have no protection. And the secured creditors will take all of the underlying stocks and bonds, which then gives them control of all public corporations. And once you control the capitalization structure, you then control all of the underlying real things.
I'm going to take that back just a second.
Basically telling us they will fail. And when that happens, the people that thought that they had hedged their exposure, included the most sophisticated institutions and the pension funds, will have no protection. And the secured creditors will take all of the underlying stocks and bonds, which then gives them control of all public corporations. And once you control the capitalization structure, you then control all of the underlying real things.
You will own nothing and be happy.
And be mad and be sad.
Well, you're going to have to be happy. Otherwise, you're going to have a shitty life being mad at the fact that you don't own nothing. Unless you people are ready to wake up and actually take action. I mean, he's suggesting it doing on a legal end.
And see, this is where, again, this falls into your buddy Barabbas. You know, his method of going through the courts. Not gonna work, bro. That's wishful. That's wishful thinking. You can't go to the same system that's corrupt.
Now, here's what I will say. If and it doesn't have to be necessarily 100% through courts, but if you get politicians on state levels to introduce legislation to amend, get rid of, whatever the case might be, you explain to people what they passed unknowingly. I'm pretty sure there's more of us, because I'll share it at the end, but there's more of us than there are that small, because we're talking about like the 0.1% of the 1%.
Yeah.
So that means there's 99.99, but we'll have all the rich people who lost everything on our side at that point.
True. But and
I'm calling this the global rug pull.
I like that. Round of applause. I like that one.
If they're able to do this, I see like us just getting rid of those banks and those entities and just saying, we're not playing your game of make believe no more. Okay, it's like Monopoly. Reset.
I don't even think does anyone have stock certificates anymore? I don't even think you can order them.
Yeah, I don't know, because they've dematerialized things. They turn things into a digital format, and then they're putting them into pools so they don't have identification anymore. So they're not non-fungible as they was before. They were non-fungible certificates. Now they're fungible digital items that you can't tell the difference. Yep. You can't tell the difference between them.
Exactly.
And it's been done purposefully. Again, that's why we encourage you to download the book that's available for free at thegreattaking.com and to watch this documentary in its entirety. And we're going to go ahead and continue on. We got about 14 more minutes of this section that we were playing.
Let's go.
So this is something like what happened in the 1930s when there was distress globally everywhere due to debt levels. And you would think that there were no winners, but there were, because the banks that were controlled by the Federal Reserve, for example, in the US, were slated to survive. 9,000 banks in the United States were forced into failure. The people who had money in those banks lost all their cash, but their debts were not canceled. Their debts were then consolidated into the Federal Reserve System.
You're going to lose your money, but you're going to keep your debt.
People that were in debt were in trouble. Even wealthy people lost everything. The difference this time around is they're not going after just property that is encumbered by debt. They've engineered this so they can take things, all securities as collateral, from people and entities that have no borrowings against them. They own them clear and outright. Now, let me give you an example as an analogy to explain the horror of this. So you have bought a car and you paid cash for it. You think you're being very conservative. You have no debt against the car. But unbeknownst to you, the dealer continues to control your car as collateral. You're not told this. The dealer uses your car and all the other cars sold by the dealer as collateral for his borrowing in his business. Now, the dealer goes bust, and only certain secured creditors are empowered to immediately take your car and all the cars ever sold by the dealer without any judicial review immediately. When I describe this to people, they get worried about their cars. This is not about your car. This is an analogy for what has been done. It's much worse than this being about your car, because it is literally about the entire securities complex globally. So it is not about your insolvency that causes the loss of your assets. It's the insolvency of the people that secretly used your collateral as their property without telling you that or disclosing it. How could this happen legally? It's a good question, and perhaps there is some hope for humanity in avoiding this, in challenging this whole construct, because it is a construct. None of this is real. There are real things in the world. This is not a real thing. But they will try to convince us that, well, I'm sorry, you've lost everything. It's an elaborate story. So yes, they have.
Only thing I'll say here too, he's kind of minimizing is it is a real thing. These things have been put into place. But we do have an opportunity to undo it and change it. But we don't have, to me, a lot of time because of the economic climate too. Because if shit hits the fan and the markets end up crashing, then this will happen faster than we have time to try to undo that on a legal level. So
agreed. If we live in a simulation, as I think we do, go ahead and try to jump off a building to see what happens. Nigga, you're gonna die. You know, I'm just saying. Regardless if we're in a simulation or not, you're gonna die inside the simulation. So don't jump off the building. So it is real. These constructs are real. That's what we live by, right? So I agree with you.
And knowing, as G.I. Joe said, knowing is half the battle.
Yeah.
Changed law. Can that be challenged? That's what has to happen. So this was the process. They changed it in the Uniform Commercial Code. This was beginning in 1994. The efforts to affect this actually go back further than that, into the 1960s, when they began the process of dematerialization of securities to hold them all electronically, which some people were suspicious about then, and they were right to be suspicious. It is clear that that beginning process was literally run by the CIA. And this is not conspiracy theory. The man who was charged with forming the Depository Trust Corp to do this, in his own memoir and in interviews, discloses that he was a career CIA operative from the time he was a young man. So there was a grand strategic purpose behind this.
Speaking of, Whitney Webb was talking about the former person, I think it was the head of the Rockefeller Foundation, is now head of the CIA.
Doesn't surprise me.
So
I can't even speak on the CIA how I want to right now.
Are they gonna come get us?
Man, that
I ain't worried.
That agency is powerful, bro.
Powerful, corrupt.
They're behind so much.
Very,
like Roswell.
Very fucking unconstitutional as well. Thank you. There you go.
They've been able to do it because it has been run from the highest levels of the U.S. government. So the involvement of the CIA, then when this construct of the securities entitlement was put into the Uniform Commercial Code, that was pushed through all 50 states, done quietly. That change was made in 1994. So it took maybe 10 years to get it done in all the states. Then they changed the bankruptcy law in 2005, and then it was ready to go with the testing of the Lehman Brothers case in 2008. So there's a plan that's executed over decades to do this. Then they began a process of harmonization, which was to force this model in law globally. And they did this through the EU. The first discussion in
globalization
is in 2002. So that's when the process was beginning then, in the aftermath of the dot-com bust. And the EU created something they called the Legal Certainty Group. And again, that sounds like a good thing, but what they mean is legal certainty that the secured creditors will take the client assets. And they worked at this for years, figuring out how to subvert local law. When you think about it, rights to property is kind of a sacred thing. It's something that all people should care about. And oddly enough, even the people participating in making this happen should care about this in a big way. So therein lies the hope of addressing this. We can come back to that. But the Legal Certainty Group identified the problematic local law, and then it took maybe another 10 years to come up with this CSDR regulation, Central Securities Depository Regulation in 2014, that mandated the transport of the collateral from the local or the national level, Central Securities Depository, where people think they own their things outright. Their record of ownership is there, and the securities are transferred up to this international Central Securities Depository level and then on to the central clearing counterparties. So it has been done in law. It's been done legally. It must be attacked legally. It must be dismantled legally. The power behind all of this is the private control of the central banks. And when you look around the world, they are all privately controlled. You are not allowed to know, actually, who controls the Federal Reserve and how it is controlled. We know that it is controlled somehow by a set of banks. So there is some kind of an ownership structure that extends through the banks that own and control the Fed. But something like this is done in all central banks around the world. If you notice, any country that has attempted to have a national bank is literally attacked and destroyed. They're not allowed to exist. So it is linked with the war machine, this private control of money. The intelligence agencies, the militaries globally would not be able to function as they are if they weren't linked with this money creation power. We now know that when we were kids, perhaps we thought that the money you borrowed from the bank is someone else's savings, that they're giving you a zero-sum game. I think
right, and this is just pause real quick. This is what I mean by national security. This is a matter of national security because this mechanism is what's funding the government, the military. So it all ties back into.
But it's funding militaries
security.
Internationally.
Yes.
From a central point, which would be what we were warned about by a military-industrial complex by several presidents, one of which was assassinated.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are you really willing to do, people?
Linked with this money creation power. We now know that when we were kids, perhaps we thought that the money you borrowed from the bank is someone else's savings, that they're giving you. It's a zero-sum game. I think we now know with the scale of the money created during the COVID period that that is not the case. The scale outstrips any real world activity, and it's just created out of thin air. So this is the power that controls everything. They control all political parties, all governments, all the major corporations, the media. And this was the case leading into the 20th century.
Oh God, that's so crazy.
The velocity of money was collapsing. That is basically a collapse of their control system. The money is a very sophisticated control system because it requires almost no energy input. People are directed by chasing money incentives, but this power through chronic overuse, when it reaches this point where no matter how much money is created, it's not translating into actual economic growth, then it goes into a financial bubble, and then you get the major collapse of the whole system. Then they must have a plan to stay in control through that collapse, which will require physical control over people through the reset because the money control system has broken down. So this is why you have a period of terrible instability. So as we were entering the 20th century, velocity money was collapsing, then the Qing dynasty collapsed. It's a global phenomenon that ended dynastic rule in China. Then in the period 1914 to 1918, the Turco-Ottoman Empire collapsed, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Russian Empire, Germany was destroyed, and the British Empire had passed its zenith and was really collapsing at that point. So it's a global collapse. And the people that controlled the banking power through that managed to stay in control. And they did it by subjugating populations. It's not about taking their money. It's not about taking their stuff, which they don't need. It's about suppression and subjugation. And
telling you what to
do.
do.
When you look at this period in the 1930s, and
telling you to wear a mask.
Is what they have planned for.
Telling you to stand 6 feet apart.
And they've set up for it. So
you listen to the sheep.
To take all collateral globally and to collapse the system in a kind of controlled demolition where they end up controlling everything. This design was set in motion over 50 years ago. It may have had a longer planning horizon than that, but we can see actual concrete steps beginning in the 1960s with dematerialization. So when this is unfolding, this wave of insolvencies, and it creates an urgency to take the collateral, people will be terrified. They will be panicked. And we know that fear shuts down critical thinking. So people will be in panic mode. I've always been interested in what happened in the 30s because of talking about these things with my father who lived through that. And what I saw happening in Cleveland when I was a boy, I tried to talk with anyone who had lived through that time. And I asked my aunt what had happened in the 30s. And she said, well, suddenly no one had any money. And I said, what do you mean? How could that be? And she said, well, no one had any money, and even wealthy families didn't have any money. And she knew families in which their daughters had been going to private schools and they couldn't afford to go back to school. When you really look at what happened there, if you close all the banks, which is what FDR did, he suddenly literally closed all the banks, and then only certain banks were allowed to reopen, which were the ones controlled by the Fed. Well, then suddenly no one had any money. It's not hard to imagine when it's all just shut down suddenly. And then you have the problem that there was a drop in price level, drop in activity, and they kept the economic activity very suppressed for years. And I know that from family history through the 30s. My grandfather's engineering business, I know from a family letter, by 1936, which was 3 years after the banks had reopened, there was still no business. 3 years later, they managed to get through this, both sides of my family, because they had no debt. People were more conservative then, but it was very difficult. Now, the other thing that happened was the Federal Reserve was set up with a kind of inevitable logic that they would have to take the gold from the public, which was, of course, the monetary asset backing everything then. So the gold of the public was confiscated under the complaint that the public was hoarding the gold. But then what did the Fed do with it? The Fed hoarded the gold and did not use it to expand credit. They kept the conditions tight. So what do we have this time around? Gold is not the underlying collateral in this system. It's all securities globally. So they will be taken under the argument that, well, we have to save these systemically vital institutions so that we can restart the economy again. How could we restart the economy if they are not protected? So that will be the reason given. And it's like a game of Monopoly where all of the pieces, all of the money on the board are pulled back to the bank, and then they say, let's start a new game. We'll start over from the basis that we have everything and you don't. So would you like to borrow something? And this is what the CBDC, the central bank digital currency, will be. It will be very difficult for people to refuse to use it because they literally won't be able to eat. They will have an app they can download. This will be the help. This will be the cavalry riding to the rescue. Just download this app and you can load your phone with some currency to allow you to go buy milk. But every time you use that, you're actually borrowing money from them. They have you. Again, it will happen very fast. This will unfold in a very frightening crisis kind of environment, and people will have difficulty refusing. And that's why it's so important to spread this awareness of this beforehand so that people understand what is happening and so that people can become engaged in this all the way to the top of the system. It has the potential to activate very capable people all the way to the top of the system. It has the potential to unify people against.
Has the potential to unify people, and that would be great, man. That's pretty much what I wanted to share. That was about 30 minutes of the entire documentary. It's 1 hour and 12 minutes, basically. The first 15 minutes is who David Webb is. Yeah. Again, you can download.
Which is important to watch, I think, to give more some validity and background to him.
I totally agree. And if you guys haven't, smash that like button, smash them like buddies. That would be greatly appreciated.
I want you to just really quickly go to the 57-minute marker.
Okay. Let me get it there.
Play for about 39 seconds.
57 minutes exactly?
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, I got it. 4 seconds before. Okay, let me pull it back up. Tell me when to stop.
Discussed. They're being covered up. The only way that the financial system has not collapsed is that there is a big hidden hand injecting lots of created money directly into the financial markets, holding them up right now, as well as allowing institutions to believe they have downside risk by buying protection in the derivatives market, the combination of those things. So this support, the hidden hand, as I call it, can be withdrawn at the time of their choosing. But we're getting late in this process, given what's already happened to the interest rates. The other indication of timing is
I just want to let people hear that part about the hidden hand. And, when he said that, I said it makes sense now, Rice. It makes sense why on Wall Street
The hidden hand.
everything looks Gucci, everything looks fine, but on Main Street, we all see with our own eyes, the economy is slowing down. People are losing their jobs. You know,
Prices of shit going up.
yeah, you see
It's not going
vacancies
down.
everywhere around town. Come on, like they can play the game and string us along for a little bit with the fake economic numbers and the stock market hitting all-time highs. And I think that's all happening because they're pumping in money, Rice, unofficially pumping in money behind the scenes and not telling us about it. This is the only way this thing can continue to go on, in my opinion. So I think there is an invisible hand right now, probably some made up ruling or law that the Federal Reserve is able to, work through and operate under to pump in more money by potentially creating these new LLs. Again, the documentary states here, Rice, that the Federal Reserve has the ability and has in the past created LLCs and funneled money through them. That is great. I didn't know that part.
No, I didn't. And that's discussed kind of like right before where we went, which is why I encourage people to watch it in its entirety. And we have links down below for thegreattaking.com where you can download the book. You can actually hit links to watch it, or you can just go on the Great Taking YouTube channel. But we have links down below in each other's video description. Before we give our 2 Satoshis, I want to highlight the comments and maybe answer a few things. Kathy Rennick was saying Trump said we don't have to worry about, we don't have central digital banking ever. Basically, he was saying something about no central bank digital currency. And I agree. There won't be, because it's going to be issued by the banks. It's going to be privately issued, whether it's a stable coin, a digital dollar, it doesn't matter. It's going to be the same thing. People just need to look at this as an umbrella under programmable currency, whether it's a central bank digital currency, a stable coin, a digital dollar, digital fiat, it's all the same.
And they can use what we already have, i.e. USDT and USDC.
Yeah, but Citibank is creating something. PayPal is creating something. So I think people will have choices and bridges, and
they'll have choices and bridges.
They'll all be ISO 20022 compliance. Yeah, everything will be surveillance.
They'll be all surveilled. So you won't necessarily see the Federal Reserve come out with their own CBDC, in my opinion.
If you buy a self-driving car and you miss a payment, it will drive itself back to the dealership. Well, they got it now with the kill switch, right? Where they could turn your car off if you don't pay.
Oh man, Mel Farr been doing that for years here in the D, man.
Especially in the D.
Yeah, Mel Farr been doing that, ladies and gentlemen.
The American nightmare is what I would refer to it more as. CIA equals control and impose on Americans.
So Kathy Rennick said something earlier. I actually captured this comment. How do we protect ourselves? So I'm going to go over that, and I'm sure, Rice, you have your suggestions as well. But I just want to point out the fact that, it all kind of, well, it didn't all start, but a lot of the move to make this new paradigm shift occur, Rice, happened in 2005 with that Bankruptcy Act change, the safe harbor.
Right. Well, A1 saying 95% of people don't comprehend this type of stuff. It has to be presented more elementary. Do you think there's a way to really simplify this?
Yeah, there is. And that's why we're doing a live stream. We're going to simplify.
Yeah, but we're not. I mean, this is just as long as a documentary. So, I mean, we're not really... We're not technically simplifying it.
Maybe we should have given our
we can do a summary.
Yeah, maybe we should have given our 2 Satoshis at the beginning, because you got so many idiots that have attention deficit disorder, and they don't want to watch to the end. So
right. Well,
I don't know.
It's on them. We've got more people watching now than when we started. So shout out to everybody watching. Again, if you haven't smashed that like button, please take an opportunity, smash a like, hit those like booties. Make sure you subscribe to both of our channels. And we have links down below in each other's video description for each other's social. Okay. What are your 2 Satoshis before, and then we can get into some solutions.
I think this was a pretty good documentary. It is probably above the heads of most people out there. Okay. So
it's slightly above my pay grade. Slightly.
Okay.
I understood. But that's where I told you the interview about the LIBOR on Blockworks Macro,
Yes.
correct channel. That was above my head where I have to sit back and re-listen to it, take some notes, and really absorb, because I don't consider myself an expert by any means, and certain
that
things
one
are
is
not the most
definitely
exciting.
more advanced.
Yeah,
That
and it's
one's
definitely not exciting. And the host, great questions, but no energy. It was just
no, he never does.
it's like ASMR. Go to sleep, put it on your head, and just tune out. I don't know, but it was very, very, very alarming what was discussed in that video, which we'll talk about. But yeah,
at the end of the day, I think that we're being propped up right now with that invisible hand. I think they're pumping in money off books, and it's really the opportunity for us to take advantage of this, though. It's the calming before the actual storm. We're in the eye of the hurricane right now. I think we headed into the hurricane with '08. Now we're in the middle. We're in the eye now, but
I think we're approaching the eye. I'm not sure that we're in the eye, but we're there.
It's been calm, bro. No, it's been too damn calm for too many years. Really, ever since COVID, it's been calm. Eerily
21
calm.
Since 21. Yeah, but you had to give the slaves a little freedom.
2019, the shit almost hit the fan then, but then miraculously we had this virus come through and save us all, and we $2 trillion printed. So we're in the eye of the storm, in my opinion, right now. But we're heading toward the other side of that wall of the eye, and we have only a very short window to take advantage of it. And what do we do? How do we take advantage of it? I think number one, cryptocurrencies. I know that sounds cliche, but listening to this documentary really should solidify for all of you out there that you own nothing in this current paradigm. I don't care if it's a home, if it's land.
Remember what was said with the whole thing about the Great Depression and people they're not being cash. So if people want to interact and not do straight bartering, then something like cryptocurrency would come in very useful on a peer-to-peer basis for people to be able to buy and sell.
Correct.
Because that was the other thing I was thinking when they were talking about that Great Depression time period where nobody had money, because the money was literally pulled out of the system and people just didn't have money. Even rich people didn't have money. Now, R.A. Daniels, I would say definitely pack your bags, but make sure that you unload your bags at the proper time. And that's because we could wake up and everything just fucking had the global rug pull just officially take place.
The one thing that I have some conflict with the documentary is his concept of paying off your debt. I almost would say run up your debt.
Yeah, because there has been jubilees in the past, and I can't see the system if they don't want the masses to really come down and let's lynch the landlord kind of situation and hang these people. Then they're going to have to forgive debt. They can't do what they did before and take all the money and say, but you still owe us.
No, they can't do that.
Right. Because then I'm telling you,
there will be a debt jubilee. There will be a debt jubilee. So I'm of the
because we already see it happening with student debt in the United States.
Correct. I just saw Biden
he's trying to up it.
Relinquish. No, he just deleted the debts of like 42,000 people for the student loan stuff.
Yeah,
who qualified for it.
Yeah, there were certain people. I don't know how it works.
I don't know how that worked when the Senate.
I have student debt and I'm not paying it, and I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just going to let it melt away with the rest of the system. I don't want credit. I don't deal with this debt-based system anymore.
I thought Congress or Washington denied
get some debt, J Crypto Minded. Get some debt. Go ahead, get some debt. Stack that debt. Stack it like sats, man.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I'm not giving you financial advice. I'm just saying the system will only benefit those who have debt the most, in my opinion. I know that sounds crazy, but it is what it is, in my opinion.
Bars of soap, great for barter, last forever, can trade it. Nobody will kill you for your soap. Just don't drop it unless you're into that.
Yeah. On a serious note, though, I think that really this should be an eye-opener for people to understand you own nothing, even if you think you own it. Even if you own your house outright. Go ahead.
I was going to say, that's the example I was going to say. If you own your house, try not to pay taxes and see what happens to your house.
Correct.
You own the house outright. You got the title, the deed, whatever you think. You don't technically, none of us, I don't think. See, this is something I've studied in illegal fiction. I don't think anybody has legal title to anything. We have equitable title.
Right, which is, he talks about this in the
documentary.
documentary.
Like land has alloidial titles. A lot of people don't have an alloidial title. Is real true land ownership.
He calls it beneficial ownership.
Which is one of the new things that got passed with, I think, with the Uniform Commercial Code.
Yes.
Because that, like you said, it started in the 1960s with dematerialization, which is taking the physical, ending the physical certificates and such, bonds, whatever the situation might be, and turning them into a digital form. In 1994, they started the process with the UCC, Uniform Commercial Code, changing things on a state level very quietly. Whether greasing the hands of people, because that's the other thing too, with the UCC thing that came out with trying to redefine money, reading it is just like, if I thought that interview was hard for me to like really engage myself into, the one that we were talking about, reading this is even worse. So it's like, it's even designed to get people to just not want to read it because it's just so awful in the brain. So 10 years it took, about roughly from 1994 to 2004-ish, to complete all 50 states in the United States to make it 100% uniform, because not every single UCC law is passed in every single state, but there are some, and this is an example of one. 2005, the bankruptcy laws were changed, and then they had what they called the harmonization of the system, which is just another word of saying globalizing everything.
Yeah, right. That's when the EU coordinated with us to enforce similar laws.
So the CSDR in 2014, which ultimately has led up to a controlled demolition based off of the 2007-2008. So everything that we are doing right now, and this goes back to what Lynette Zhang said, is that everything is on life support and the banks are fucking zombies. Which if you think about this whole system being kept alive by being injected, that would be, it's pumping life into the system. It's putting like pain pill, like endorphin medicine inside of an injured fighter who just keeps fighting because he keeps getting jacked with all these pain meds. As soon as the pain meds are gone, can't do anything.
Yeah. My last point I want to make before giving you a simplified, and I already kind of did, but I just want to make this point clear, and I didn't understand this either. I mean, of course, I've read and studied a little bit about the Great Depression, but Rice, I didn't know that it took literally 3 years from the time the first banks started collapsing until the actual shutdown of the banking system. It took 3 years. So, I mean, look at where we are now with.
Are you referring to the Great Depression now?
Great Depression, yes.
For 3 years, the shutdown from like
1930 was when the first banks started to collapse.
And 33 was the shutdown.
Yeah, ergo, you take today. You know, we had last year we had SVB and all these other banks began to collapse. Right, we actually had the most banks collapse in nominal terms, than we have ever had, I believe, last year. So that could be the start. It doesn't happen overnight. There are clues, there are little hints, bumps to get your attention. You gotta pay attention. You gotta get ahead of the curve and start positioning yourselves. And again, my opinion, how you position yourself in these last days, or the global rug pull, as Rice put it. I love that one. Is, to me, have your assets outside of the banking system. The only way you can do that is have farmland. That could help, though they could take that away from you as well. but have some silver and
Right,
gold.
because if
have
you
some
don't have the allodial title,
right, that's a possibility. But
physical gold,
lastly,
physical silver, even
sure,
copper, just precious
sure,
metals in general,
precious
cryptocurrency.
metals and last but not least, cryptocurrencies in your own possession, in your own wallets, not on the Coinbase or Kraken account. It can't be there. You got to put it
Cannot
in
be
your
on
own
exchange.
hands. Spread it across. If you want to have some OPSEC, this is what they call it, operational security. Spread it across a few different wallets so that if one gets compromised, it doesn't take your whole stash.
Right, and
But
don't
have
be
them
like,
in your own possession.
do not be like a bitch that owns an ETF that says like,
No.
hey, I can't do things by myself. I'm not capable of handling my own business. I need somebody to intermediate and help me out. Don't be that person. Make
Yeah.
sure, again, like Blood said, you have a cryptocurrency wallet, whether it's a hot wallet on your phone, and you can use a burner phone. You can use an old phone that doesn't
Yep.
have service.
Yep.
I say take the SIM card out just for safety. Use Wi-Fi. Turn the Wi-Fi off when you're done. Make sure you're
Yep.
writing down your recovery phrase. Make sure you're putting that in a safe place. Maybe write it down a couple places. But get the idea is that you possess and control and own your cryptocurrencies.
I
Do
would
not
almost
allow another person to do it.
I would rather go that route, Rice, than doing that ledger shit. You know, you're continually seeing compromises on the ledger
You mean,
side.
yeah, with the phone, you mean?
Yeah, doing the phone route
Like having an
versus
old
doing a
phone.
ledger.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't have my other one handy, but I have two phones. And
Yeah, I've got
and
a
then
few.
with that second phone, I have my 2FA. So there's no way that somebody could SIM swap and get into my stuff, because if they did, they would be SIM swapping into my phone, which doesn't have any cryptocurrency wallet access at all. I do have access to my Coinbase, but Coinbase is I have the two-factor authentication. So I mean, I've been taking care of myself as far as the security goes.
I would also suggest people have cash. This may sound counterintuitive or against what we would be preaching or what we would think, but actually I think cash would be a good thing to have on deck as well. Smaller denominations.
I
That
wouldn't
way
say
you
a
can.
shit ton though. I wouldn't, because we don't
Why?
know what the value. Because I mean, I went to Bitcoin 22 or 21. Let me show you.
No. See, everyone knows what the value of a $5 bill is now. Okay.
Yeah.
Most people don't know what the value of a Bitcoin is, or the value of more so, I should say, the value of gold or silver. They have no clue. So
Okay.
everyone knows universally know what the $5 bill will get you.
Well, what if this was the United States dollar? What would this get me?
What do you mean?
With the $50 denomination for the United States right now, what would this get me?
$51 bills. I don't.
Okay. Well, this $50 bolivar from Venezuela is worth like fractions of a
cents,
penny.
20 cents.
Fractions of a penny. Like,
Yeah.
it's so bad that Bitcoin 21, they had a dumpster
Yeah, I
full of
saw
these
that.
things
I
floating
remember that.
everywhere. There's a video that I've had on my channel. These were worth so little. And it was probably over $1 million worth of these things, million bolivars. It wasn't even worth a homeless person taking, because exchanges didn't even want it.
Yeah.
Exchanges did not want it.
But that's a different scenario, Rice, because that is a collapse of a third world system.
Yeah, but
Or you get what I'm saying? This is the first world collapse.
we're not far away from
the hegemony.
From us going into a hyperinflation direction, though. I mean, it may not be as extreme as what we've seen in Venezuela or even Zimbabwe and stuff, but we still are on the cusp of that potentially. But I mean,
I put it to compare apples to apples, because people like to give those Venezuela, Zimbabwe, Weimar. They like to give those. To compare apples to apples, Rice, I would compare the U.S. to the U.K. and the Bretton Woods Accord, right? Because the U.K. was the global reserve currency, and they lost it. You didn't see crazy hyperinflation and all of that stuff happen. And so I think it will be similar scenario for the U.S. when, not if, but when we lose our global reserve currency. I don't think it's going to go like crazy Weimar, Venezuela.
I mean, and
style.
us being technically the world reserve currency still. I mean, it's possible. I mean, we're the king of the hill, so I mean, we're going to suffer the least compared to the other fiat currencies, especially when if you look at it and you think about it correctly, the rest of the fiat currencies are just derivatives of the dollar because everything's based on the dollar anyways.
Shout out to
Jenna X. Look at we did that at the same
The
time.
hottest crypto lady in the building.
She's
in the
too
game.
cool for us though, man. She doesn't know how to message people back.
Oh, really?
No.
I bet you if I slid in her DM, she would message me
we
back.
You slid into my private message because she was hosting an X Spaces for a project that we shall not name here.
Oh no, don't do that.
We don't do that. We don't play with that kind of project. And Jen, if you want to know more, you can slide into me in Blood's DM and we'll explain to you the problem with that project. She's been on my show. She been on yours?
She has not.
Oh.
She has not.
But again, if she would respond to messages, maybe she can come on my show more frequently or just say, hey, Happy New Year. But no, she's too cool.
I'm on Around the Blockchain with her quite frequently, and I
need to get back on
Trading Wars. Yes, you do. Trading Wars over on Debate Crypto, aka I forgot they changed their name, but
because I've technically chosen my side. If you want to be technical about things.
Oh my God!
I thought you were street smart, bro. Do you think I should let people see that for like
no,
more, that little that's
enough?
Okay.
That's enough for me.
It's like I want to ingrain something in people's brains in a subliminal way. So when they see this individual, that's all they'll think.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts, man? What are your solutions? What are your solutions for us after watching this documentary?
The ideas of agorism, which is using counter economics and creating parallel societies. I think that we need to, and when I say parallel societies too, that doesn't mean that we need to go and like go out in the woods somewhere or form our own little areas where we all like congregate and live. We can do it where we live now.
Okay.
I think it's important for us to try to connect up with our farmers markets, our local farmers, our local meat producers, and try to get people on board for a system that will support locally each other and have a way of having to continue commerce in the idea that we may see bank failures. We may see a bank shut down. I've said for a while that based off the numbers, people are like, we're going to have a soft landing. We're not going to have a recession. I'm like, no, we're not going to have a recession. We're going to have a fucking depression. And it's going to be worse, in my opinion, than the Great Depression because of the underlying consequences based off of what we have learned from like people like David Webb. It's bigger. It's not just taking your property. It's taking everything. And again, you will own nothing. And what, Blood?
Be sad.
Unless you got crypto.
Yeah, man, I agree with you there. And I just think that one last thing, people should stop being fully reliant on one stream of income. Have a skill set that can be valuable within your local community in some form or fashion. Because again, if we do see a collapse, you're talking unemployment. Now, just to put it into context.
Well, the unemployment numbers are happening now. It's been recommended that if you have a job, don't quit it right now. Unless you just got it, unless you're getting an offer right now, keep the job that you got because you might be eating the bugs. Eat the bugs.
So
you might be eating bugs now. I've been told that they're already kind of putting that into some stuff. So I'm trying to look
put it into context. I don't know what that's about. You have to explain, but just to put it into context, the Great Depression,
crickets in your shit.
Oh, I think the unemployment rate during the Great Recession or Depression, I'm sorry, the 1930s, was somewhere around 50%, 40%, something like that. So most people still have 50%, I believe.
So what'd you say the rate though?
Unemployment rate.
Okay.
40. I think it was 35 to 40%, somewhere around there. So most people still had jobs. I I think it may be a little worse this go around. I think you may have a little bit more than half the people in America not have jobs, which would be a total collapse. It's not going to be like everyone.
Well, then the interesting thing is, like, yeah, and not to go again, because I don't have a problem with people coming to our country that's doing it the proper way. The people that are coming in the way that they're doing now with the border issue, we have a lot of people, a lot of mouths that want to be fed. That will probably do work a lot cheaper than most Americans will do. So I think the ones that are employed won't even be the Americans. It'll be these immigrants that crossed into our country and the borders to get cheap labor.
Have you heard and seen the clips of a whole bunch of Nancys? No, is it Nancy or Cat? What's Karens? Karens.
Some Karens, man.
A whole bunch of Karens up in New York. I don't even call them Karens because I would be right there with
Jenna actually changed her name to Karen X.
Karen X. There you go. Round of applause. But did you see a bunch of Karens up in New York protesting, yelling at the officials and the employees of the city for busing in all these immigrants from the border and housing them in these schools
in New York,
local schools in New York?
Yeah,
so
they're shutting down the schools. Brooklyn. I think it was Brooklyn specifically.
Brooklyn. Yeah, they're shutting down the schools.
I love you too.
They're shutting down the schools, man, to house these illegal immigrants, man. It's just gotten so out of control. I'm sorry. Anyone who's voting Democrat, you're an enemy of mine. Because they're fucking up the country. I'm sorry. I know
the Democrats are going far left and most Republicans are going far right, where a lot of us are just kind of sitting in the middle.
No, I wouldn't say most Republicans are going far right.
You have. I think that there's a minority of Trump-styled Republicans versus the Rhino Republicans. I think the majority of Republicans are far fucking right.
And what are the right? Are they the rhinos or are they the MAGAs?
The rhinos.
Okay, the rhinos
had the majority. They had the majority of bodies, but Trump and the MAGA has the fucking nation.
See, I look at the MAGA movement as pretty center right.
Civil War in movies this April, and this April 8th, we're having that total solar eclipse. 422, possibly, hopefully 420. We have a Bitcoin halving. We have the anniversary of the LA riots and my birthday on April 29th. April's going to be a hell of a month.
Oh shoot, man.
The rhinos are actually moving left. Actually, the crazy thing is when you're looking at things like a circle in a really weird way, the far left and far right meet. It's just the extreme. It's because you become so extreme. It's the craziest thing. And it's almost like that Star Wars analogy that you become that which you hate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
or Riza Sativa must be a weed strain.
You just saw that. No, actually, it's a Latin word. You should look it up real quick. Let's do a word of the day. Well, it's too late to do the word of the day. But I'm glad you just caught that. You just caught that.
I saw
look
it at
the
beginning.
Or pre-searching what it is. Somebody in the chat, look this up. Go on pre-search and pre-search Oriza Sativa. Doesn't that sound fucking cool though?
Sounds like a weed strain to me.
It does. But from the Latin, it just means cultivated, which should be something that people have cultivated. It's not wild. It's not non-domesticated. What does Oriza sound like? Jenna X says it sounds like breakfast.
Rice.
It's Latin for it's Latin for rice.
Is it?
Yeah, Oriza Sativa. I'm like, this is fucking beautiful. When I found this out, I was like, this is beautiful.
Yo, I didn't even know that. That's crazy, bro.
Yeah, that would be my rap name when we put out our song.
Yeah, I got some bars, man. I gotta go ahead and start playing those lost tapes. But yeah, man, I think this was I think everyone over the weekend should at least check it out. Check out the documentary. Link is in the description of the video.
Download the book. I would say download the book and start downloading a bunch of stuff that you might want to keep in case we do have some sort of cyber attack and internet shutdown and reboot, as Whitney Webb spoke about. So downloading books like The Great Taking at thegreattaking.com is a good way to start your
Have you
offline
talked
library.
to Whitney Webb to convey the messages that Charles Hoskinson's so vehemently
No, but
communicated with you to
I'm
communicate
still trying to get in touch with her for an interview. I know I'm small on the totem pole, so
Nah,
I'm
man,
hoping that she would just be more intrigued by the conversation than worrying about the views, considering she gets the views on all these other bigger platforms. But I'm still working it, and generally, if something's supposed to happen, the universe is pretty good at making sure it happens for me.
What about Charles Hoskinson? Have you been able to get him on?
I do. I'm trying to get him rescheduled. I'm talking to his people. I think they're kind of holding against me rescheduling him in Vegas when I was supposed to interview him in person. Yeah.
I think it's more so. You know what it is? I think people are more scared of us than anything. That's what it is.
Charles was ready to do. He was ready to do the interview.
I understand Charles is, but see, when you get at a certain level, you begin to have gatekeepers around you.
Yeah,
that protect you from shit that they think that
we're gonna change. We're gonna have to infiltrate, man. We're gonna whatever. I want to start writing for Bitcoin Magazine or something.
There you go.
They're not gonna be able to deny me. I'm gonna do something. Something. I'll make it happen. Because you gotta take life by the balls and make it yours.
That's right.
Grab the bull by the horns. You got anything you want to add before we wrap up?
No, I only got 44 likes, man. I'm disappointed. I need more likes. Let's get 100 today.
Should we just stay online until we get it, man? We might have to be here for a few more hours, but you want to do a 24-hour live stream? You want to just keep this thing going all night?
We need to do one of those though, Loki.
That would be cool. That would be cool because we could work it. We could work something in sections where we could alleviate each other.
Yep.
Give each other breaks, potty breaks, food breaks,
sex breaks.
Sex breaks. Yeah.
I need that.
I don't need a 420 break because I always have a 420 break. Always.
There you go. There you go.
So I do appreciate everybody taking the time to tune in. Again, if you guys happen to be watching this over on the Crypto Blood side, make sure you're following me on the X at RiceTVX. The year of the X, there's so much X shit going on, like even this X disease, man. So much X. Well, I think it's theoretical. And then you guys can subscribe to my YouTube channel, Rice Crypto.
Right.
If you're watching over on the right side here, make sure you're following my brother from another mother on the X platform at CryptoBlood_ as well as on YouTube. I love Crypto Blood. He's got so many different crypto channel names. He changes his name based off of his feelings every day.
Yeah. Yeah, if we head lower than $30,000 Bitcoin, it will be I hate crypto again, ladies and gentlemen. So
make sure you guys are smashing that like button.
Yeah, man, that's it, man.
Kathy Rennick, man, somebody complained about a long stream. Well, unfortunate. We like to do long streams, so I think that long form content is the best content. So, and the best part is on replay, you can always put this on a 1.5 speed and enjoy. So, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Smash the like button if you like Klaus Schwab. If you think that Klaus Schwab looks like a turtle. Yeah. All right, people. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you smash that like button. Any final thoughts?
Go watch the documentary.
Down below, it's linked.
Go watch the documentary Bitcoin on Netflix as well. See, you need to interview me on that one. Because I got
let's do it next week. Let's do it next week.
Go watch the Bitcoin.
Stop. Like the video and then stop and go watch the documentary.
There you go.
Don't go slow. Okay? There's no slow kids at play here.
There you go.
I'm confused by that. Anyways, is it slow kids at play? Like slow kids or slow kids at play?
You got to have the comma, man.
Yeah, because it's like, what? Is there a bunch of special needs kids around the neighborhood?
Right.
What you guys got going on here? All right, ladies and gentlemen, hope you've been entertained. We will be tuning back in at you. Make sure you're checking out our solo content. And with that being said, I encourage you, as always, to be a blessing to others. Treat people how you want to be treated. Be the glitch that you want to see in this matrix, because it is a matrix. Be the change that you want to see in the world. And until next time, holla. Shout out to Karen X.